Feminism is killing the Protestant Church and Western civilization as we know it. Give me about 15 to 20 minutes to try to systematically explain why this might be the case. Right now, Western civilization is on a tipping point. We are extremely fragile as a civilization, mainly because there are cores and principles and foundations that we are really laid upon. And once those foundations and principles are compromised and no one understands the social order, it puts us in a very fragile spot. When you think about war, when you think about our history, we've overcome a lot of things. But when it comes from within, when you are internally divided from within, it's a whole different ballgame. And so I'm trying to figure out, where did we go wrong, specifically as the church? I believe that this is a Christian nation found on Christian principles, and that was the social order and construct in which we built America and Western civilization. And so if Christianity is no longer the foundation of Western civilization in America, then we really don't have one. There's no social order. Maybe you could say capitalism or money or the American dream, but a lot of that stuff is falling apart as well, which means we have to have some type of social construct, some understanding of where we all play a role and where we're all going. And if Christianity is not there to uphold that and give us a roadmap of where we are to go in the civilization that we want to build, then we're pretty much screwed. And so I'm trying to track back, where did Christianity go wrong? Why are we seeing all of this distrust and disorder and chaos and crime and basically this unraveling of the Western world? And I believe it's because Christianity is not the core principle, the core values that we uphold as Americans anymore. And I'm starting to track back of what are the true roots of how this happened. You could look at the extremities, maybe the mega church, non-denominational, the guy wearing Gucci flip-flops on stage, or the extremities, the main lines being woke or liberal. You could go that route, but really those are just the actions, the extremities at the end of the curve. What happened at the beginning to really make that happen? And there's a couple things that I'm starting to see that I cannot unsee. It's conversations that are starting. And one podcast that I listen to, it's Trigonometry. I believe her name is Helen Andrews. And she wrote an article for New York Times called The Great Feminization. And basically she says that everything that we're seeing, all the breaks in society, whether it's institutional, whether it's crime, whether it's politics, whether it's the church, that's the route that I want to take, that it came from feminism. Not really first wave or second wave, but really third and fourth wave feminism that has completely shaken the foundation of what we know as Western society, what we have founded ourselves on, a merit-based society. We're equal in dignity and rights, but we're not equal in our roles and responsibilities. That's what the Protestant ethos is. But what happened in the 50s and 60s when the feminist movement was really starting to take off, they wanted to say that women are the same altogether, that they could play the same roles and responsibilities. They could, especially in third and fourth wave feminism, they could be police officers, they could go to war, they could be CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. They have all the same rights as men. They are completely gifted in the same ways. And obviously, you see, as this arc continues and it goes and progresses through now 50 to 60 years of iteration, we now have a place where men and women are actually competing in the same sports. It's madness. And so what she starts to say is that institutions were based off of some foundational principles that women have relatively thrown out. And so you think of a merit-based society, a merit-based program. And so if you have the test scores that you need, or you have the skills and abilities to get into Harvard, then you should be able to get into Harvard. Except now, with women running the show, it's more, their thumbs are on the scales in many ways. And she goes and she breaks down how in institutions that you have to have the same amount of women and men throughout each career, or in programs in schools, or you have DEI programs that are putting people who weren't supposed to be there in the first place, but they're getting a seat at the table even though they weren't supposed to be. And she's basically saying that everything that you see right now, this woke culture, socialism up in New York, or you have DEI programs, anything like that, that the traditional marriage is not the way that we've always known it. Two gay guys can now be parents to an adopted child, things like that. Every single thing that we see, especially like abortion, it comes to top of mind. They're women-led problems. They are basically destroying the foundation of what we know as America. And what I have now tracked is this is exactly what has taken place in the church, especially the Protestant church. You have two kinds of problems, really. I see the main lines that are actually putting women in leadership, and that is breaking everything at the seams of what we know as the Protestant Church. You would not see a traditional conservative man do a transgender drag show at their mainline Protestant church. That actually happened. I saw that on the itinerary last week. And these kind of things, as you really track back, why are these things happening? It seems like feminism and women not understanding the role and responsibility that they play, and then men not understanding the roles and responsibilities that they play. You start to see, oh, there is a core foundation here. We don't understand society as its core. We've lost the principles and values that kept this whole thing glued together. What is traditional marriage? The number one thing that you should do is pursue a family, a traditional marriage with a man and a woman, raise kids. The men provide for the household. You go out, you work, you accomplish, you build, and the women take care of the children. But instead, we have people who don't want to own homes anymore. They don't want to get married anytime soon. And so you have this huge influx of 40-year-old women who are career driven, who don't want a man or who want that top level man that they're never going to get. And they don't want to have children. There was a new stat that just came out that said conservative men, what is some of their top responsibilities? And I believe having children was number one. And then they took a poll of women who are single, who aren't really pursuing to be married. Maybe they're pursuing after their career. And it was like number 18 or something absolutely crazy that they don't want to have children. This is a social construct that is completely divided. And if the church does not understand its role and responsibility of where it's supposed to place people, how it's supposed to understand what this life is about, and it's teaching its people how to live out that life, what it means to have a godly life as a disciple of Jesus Christ, the whole thing will fall apart. We are supposed to be the leaders of culture. I believe that America is based off Christian values. And if they're not understanding what's happening, how we are being attacked as Americans and how we're supposed to live our lives, and it's supposed to be a Christian worldview and Christian values where you have children and the man is the leader of the household. He's the leader of the church. We would call this a patriarchy. We're so scared to say that word, but that is true biblical precedence for what we've always known as a Christian lifestyle. And so I'm starting to see this just play out. And if men and women do not understand their roles and responsibilities, we will completely fall apart. And I truly believe that. And so what does this mean for Protestantism? It means if you do not take up the mantle of what it means to be the church, you do not understand the gospel. The gospel is about suffering. It's about waging war on your sin. It's about trying to get people into heaven. And here's the thing, this is not the woman's fault. This is specifically the man's fault. Just like in the garden with Adam and Eve, it was the man who was responsible for this. We have constantly been called to a specific position of leadership. All throughout the Old Testament, we see men who are leaders and kings and who are given the roles and responsibility to take the mission of the gospel and the mission of God forward. And then even in Genesis, the woman is called to be the helper. That has always been the case. All the disciples were men. Jesus was a man. And in the New Testament, men are called and commissioned to lead the church and to pursue the gospel and then lead their women accordingly. That's always been the case. And here's a couple things why. Women are led by emotion, and that's not a bad thing. We absolutely need that. They're called to be caregivers to those around them. That emotion is a superpower for them. But when that emotion is placed in the wrong types of atmospheres, when it's placed in the wrong types of roles, it could be detrimental to our safety. You think of things like crime, you think of things like the border, and emotion plays a really bad role in cases like that. They see on the news and they're led by their emotion. They see a kid who might be taken out by ICE, or they see someone who is the least of these and they want to do everything they can to help them. But usually a man who is not so much swayed by emotion, but can use more logic and long-term thinking, they understand the whole picture. That for the safety of these women and these children, we have to do things that are hard, but they're necessary to make sure that we have a society that will last the long term. And that's something that God has ingrained in men. We understand war. We understand suffering and persecution and what you have to do to get through that. That's why men are called to positions of leadership, especially in the church. The church is supposed to be a pinnacle. It's supposed to be a light on the hill. But that comes with a lot of hardship. That comes with a lot of heartache. And men understand why that's so important. Sometimes women cannot see that. And so we are supposed to be called to the specific role, and women are supposed to be called to the specific role. And I believe until we take back over the church, men take back over the church, the pastors talk to the men, they understand that he is the leader of the household. And if you talk to him and you make sure he is on mission, everything else will fall into place. And so the church is called to do that. But until that happens, we will continue to see chaos and decay. And the Western civilization as we know it might not be here. I think there's a lot of young men who really understand this and who want to take back the culture, who want to take back the church. And if the older generation does not start to help, I believe they will get thrown to the side. Or people like the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church will keep plucking away at the young men, and the Protestant Church will completely lose its relevance. It'll completely lose everything that we have built here in America in just one generation. Just like that, we will be irrelevant as the Protestant Church because we're not understanding the calling. We're not understanding the cultural moment that we're in. And so I want to say to the Protestant Church, be proud of a patriarchy. Be proud to say that men are the leader of the household. They're the leaders of the church. And if we don't take this up, if we don't understand our biblical calling, we don't read the New Testament and understand what it says, we say that this thing is truthfully the word of God. It is like a sword that will cut through like a knife. It is just as relevant today as it was back then. Paul did not just write for that time. He's writing for the church now. And when 1 Timothy, when it says, I do not permit a woman to teach, we stand on that and we say that this is the way the Lord has made it. He said back in Genesis that men have the roles and responsibilities to lead the church, to lead his household, and he did not make a mistake. We should not let this keep going because I believe that the more we let women not understand what their roles and responsibilities are, it actually does a disservice to them. And I'm more passionate about this than ever. And I truly believe this. If men are in their right roles and responsibilities, women flourish, the church flourishes, society flourishes, and the kids, specifically, man, the kids, they flourish the most. We shouldn't be embarrassed of this. We should take note of our Christian brothers and sisters throughout all history that have said this and proclaimed this to the mountaintops. And I'm encouraged by some of the books and the conversations that are happening. I think younger generations get this, and I think they're going to rewrite the ship. But man, older generations, please get on board. Please understand where you messed up. We had this social contract and we tried something new. Everything is descending into chaos. Everything is going wrong. And so let's try to rewrite the ship. And I think what sadly is going to happen is the Protestant church is going to continue to decay and it's going to continue to lose its influence. And we're going to have to do something radical to rewrite it. Or the Protestant church might just completely diminish here in Western civilization. And you have things like Catholic and Orthodox that take over the prominent culture, which if they're more conservative and they're leading in the ways that I'm talking about, maybe that's the best thing for America. Who knows? But I want the Protestant church to be there. I want us that I truly believe we built America. And so if we want to continue America as we've always known it, and we've always loved it, we've become the pinnacle of the world off of Protestant values and ethos. But we need to step back up and understand who we are as Protestants. And that, I truly believe that starts with putting the men back where he's supposed to be. And encouraging them in that, building them up, giving them confidence, not letting society and women just completely pound them and diminish them in their character, but understanding that they are so powerful. They have a strength that women just don't have, and giving them the opportunity and responsibility and the encouragement to be the men that they've always wanted to be. And I truly believe that America will swing back if that happens. And again, this is not to bash women. I truly love women and they have roles and responsibilities that are beautiful and that we need. But this is more for the men, and the children and the women will be so much better off for it if we understand how beautiful this could be. But this is a value to you. Please share, subscribe. I have a private school community in which we talk a little bit more about this kind of stuff. So please join me there, but I'll see you in the next one.